It's an event or an action that might look more like a scene from a Cold War thriller than a modern diplomatic mission, as the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, recently altered his flight path from Budapest to Washington, D.C. to avoid the airspace of countries that might enforce an international criminal court arrest warrant if by chance his plane was forced to make an emergency landing. According to Haaretz, his route was extended by some 400 kilometres, around 250 miles, just to avoid flying over nations like Ireland, Iceland, the Netherlands, all ICC member states perceived as likely to comply with international legal obligations. His jet, therefore, chartered a careful course over Croatia, Italy, and France, countries that Israel considers less inclined to detain a sitting head of government from a key Western ally, even if the ICC arrest warrant were active. Now, what prompted such extraordinary aerial choreography? To answer that, we have to step back to March 2021, when the ICC formally opened an investigation into alleged war crimes committed in the Palestinian territories in Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem since June 2014. And this investigation includes the actions of the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF, especially in the 2014 Gaza war and the subsequent operations, and Israel's policy of settlement expansion in the occupied territories, potentially violating Article 8 of the Rome Statute, and not to omit balance alleged war crimes by Palestinian groups, including Hamas, for rocket attacks on Israeli civilians, and indeed the pursuit of the Gaza campaign at the moment in the besieged area of Gaza. Although no formal charges have actually been issued against Netanyahu, he is central to Israel's wartime decisions, both in 2014 and more recently in Gaza following the October the 7th, 2023 Hamas attacks, which puts him squarely within the sights of the ICC, particularly under the doctrine of command responsibility. In November 2024, the ICC reportedly issued draft arrest warrants for both Netanyahu and the former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, citing war crimes and crimes against humanity in Israel's military campaign and the process of mass attacks against civilians. At the time of his Washington visit, more than 50,000 Palestinians have been killed, prompting international outrage and a genocide case at the International Court of Justice, the ICJ. The ICC's jurisdiction derives from the Rome Statute, a treaty ratified by over 120 countries. And while Israel and the United States are not among them, many European countries are, and if a suspect under an ICC warrant lands in their jurisdiction, they are legally obliged to arrest and transfer that individual to The Hague, hence Netanyahu's unusual travel precautions. The irony, of course, is stark. A head of government avoiding democratic nations' airspace for fear of justice. It's a rarefied company that he joins. Previous examples include Sudan's Omar al-Bashir, who carefully curated his foreign visits after his ICC warrant was issued. What is even more striking is Hungary's reaction, and shortly after Netanyahu landed in Budapest, the Hungarian government under Viktor Orban announced its withdrawal from the ICC altogether, a dramatic and unmistakably political gesture of support for Israel, and, more cynically, a rebuke of the very notion of international legal accountability. In Washington, Netanyahu was met not by universal applause, but by protests demanding a ceasefire and a prisoner exchange. And these voices reflect not only the moral controversy surrounding Israel's campaign, but also the growing rift between public sentiment and traditional diplomatic alliances. So what are the implications? First, this episode underscores the increasing legal fragility of power in the 21st century. Once unassailable, heads of state now face real, if limited, accountability, if not at home, then abroad. Secondly, it reveals the political theatre surrounding international law. Arrest warrants that cannot be enforced or are selectively enforced risk becoming both a tool of justice and a symbol of global hypocrisy. And finally, it poses an enduring question: what does it mean for a democracy like Israel to have its elected leader potentially branded a war criminal? Can a nation uphold democratic values while ignoring international humanitarian norms? And in short, Netanyahu's detour was not merely geographical, it was judicial, it was symbolic, it was profoundly political. It tells us something about the ICC's evolving role, about the tectonic shifts in global justice, and perhaps about the long shadow cast by Gaza over the conscience of the international community, and the abhorrence that the international community feels for the excessive violence that is being used, the punishment of civilians for the behavior of the Hamas terrorists in October, and this is against all norms, all civilized norms, and I think one has to call out with a clear voice that this is not proportional, and this is not right, and this needs to stop.